Today we're learning about quadratic equations and problem solving. I know that I've got this when I can solve problems that can be modeled by quadratic equations, solve problems involving right triangles using the Pythagorean theorem. So key vocabulary, the Pythagorean theorem, that's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You deal with that when you deal with right triangles. So those are triangles that have a 90-degree angle. And the hypotenuse is the side across from the right angle in a right triangle. All right, example 1a says the height h in feet of a golf ball after t seconds is given by the equation h equals negative t squared plus 96t. Find how long it takes for the golf ball to return to the ground. Okay, so on the ground, the height is going to be 0. So I'm going to plug in a 0 for height, and it says how long does it take? So I'm looking for t. All right, so you pull out your GCF, which would be negative 16t, and I'm left with t minus 6. So I set each of those factors equal to 0 and solve for time. So the first time I get is 0, the second time I get is 6. So it's going to be 6 seconds. So the height of 0 is 0 feet at the time of 0 seconds when the golf ball was first hit. And again, at the time at 6 seconds. The golf ball returns to the ground 6 seconds after it has been hit. So your answer would be 6 seconds. Cliff divers frequent the falls in Oahu, Hawaii. One of the popular diving spots is 64 feet high. Neglecting air resistance, the height of the diver above the pool after t seconds is h equals negative 16 t squared plus 64. How long does it take the diver to reach the pool? So again, it's wanting to know the height at 0 when this diver hits the pool. So I'm going to plug in a 0 for h, and I'm going to factor out the GCF, which would be negative 16. And 16 times 4 is 64. Now, this is a difference of squares, so you can actually factor that again into t minus 2 and t plus 2. So if I set both of those factors equal to 0, the 16 you don't do anything with because it's not a variable. You can actually divide both sides by 16 and it will cancel out. So you just get t minus 2 equals 0 and t plus 2 equals 0. So your time would be 2 or negative 2, but you can't have negative 2 seconds. So your answer is it takes 2 seconds for the diver to reach the pool. Okay, you go ahead and do this one. And you should have gotten 5 seconds. So if you need to pause this and see how I did that, go ahead. (2a) says the product of two consecutive positive integers is 132. Find the two integers. Okay. Two consecutive positive integers. So we're talking about x and x plus 1. So the product of those is 132, and we're trying to find those. So I'm going to distribute. And you know, anytime you have a quadratic term, you have to set one side of the equation equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract that 132 and factor. So x times x is x squared, and 12 times 11 is 132. And if I want a positive one, I need to have a positive 12 and a negative 11, because 12 minus 11 is 1, and 12 times negative 11 is 132. So I'm going to set both of these factors equal to 0. And I would get negative 12 and positive 11. So my answers, the product of two consecutive positive integers is 132. So actually, you can have negative 12 and negative 11, or you can have 11 and positive 12. And then the answer is this because it says the product of two positive integers. So if it's just said two integers, Both of these could be the answer, but since it says positive integers, the only answer is 11 and 12. 2b, the square of a number plus 3 times the number is 70. So the square of a number plus 3 times the number is 70. Find the number. So again, we need to subtract 70 from both sides to set one side equal to 0 and factor. So we would use 10 and -7. And then I would set both of those equal to 0 and solve. And I would get x equals -10 and x equals 7. So it says the square of a number plus 3 times the number is 70. Find the number. So if I did 10 squared plus 3 times that, that is not going to give me what I want. But if I say the square of 7 plus 3 times 7, that would give me 70 because that would be 49 plus 21, which is true. So your only answer in this case is 7. So you do need to check your answers and make sure that you're choosing the correct one. All right, you go ahead and do this one. And you should have gotten that the base is 6 meters and the height is 10 meters. Remember, this is the area of a triangle problem, so you're going to use area equals 1/2 base times height. And it said that the height was 2 meters less than twice the base. We don't know what the base is, and so I distributed the 1/2 b into this parentheses, and I got that, and then I set one side equal to 0 and I factored. Your final answer, you would have gotten 6 and -5, but you know that a base distance can't be a negative number, so I just chose the 6. The Pythagorean theorem in a right triangle, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the two legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse. So you get a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You do need to write that down. Go ahead and pause it, write the Pythagorean theorem down. Find the length of the shorter leg of a right triangle if the longer leg is 10 miles more than the shorter leg and the hypotenuse is 10 miles less than twice the shorter leg. All right, so a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? So I'm going to say a and b don't matter which is which. C always matters because it's across from the right triangle, the right angle. So you're going to say x squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now you do need to solve all those. So you're going to get x squared plus x squared plus 20x plus 100. I'm squaring that equals, this would be 4x squared minus 40x plus 100. And that is 2x minus 10 squared. Okay, now I'm going to get like terms together. So I've got 2x squared plus 20x plus 100 equals 4x squared minus 40x plus 100. Now, what I hope that you see is that the 100s will cancel each other out. If I subtract 100 from both sides, they'll just cancel out. Okay, so now we want to get like terms on one side because it's a quadratic equation. So I'm going to subtract 2x squared from both sides, and I'm going to subtract the 20x from both sides. So when I do that, I'll get 0 equals 2x squared minus 60x. Now I'm going to take out the greatest common factor, which is a 2x. And when I do that, I'll have x minus 30. So 2x equals 0, or x minus 30 equals 0. So I would get x equals 0, because 0 divided by 2 is 0. And if I add 30, I would get x equals 30. Well, you know the length of this triangle can't be 0, right? And so the question was find the length of the shorter leg. So x equals 30, so the length of the shorter leg would be 30 miles. 3b says find the lengths of the sides of the right triangle if the lengths can be expressed as 3 consecutive even integers. We want, okay, so the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? So the lengths of these triangles are, the lengths of the sides are 3 consecutive even integers. Well, we know, because we've talked about this before, 3 consecutive even integers would be x squared, x plus 2, and x plus 4. So I'm plugging those in, letting c be the longest length. Okay, so if I work this out, I would get x squared plus x plus 2 squared is x squared plus 4x plus 4. And then x plus 4 squared would be x squared plus 8x plus 16. Now I'm going to combine like terms. And since I have a quadratic term, I'm going to move everything over to the left side. So I'm going to subtract that x squared, subtract the 8x, and subtract the 16. So when I do that, I get x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. And I'm going to factor that as x minus 6 and x plus 2. So I'd get x minus 6 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. So x would equal 6 and negative 2. But these are lengths of a triangle, so it can't be a negative length. So your first length is 6, and if these are consecutive even integers, it would be 6, 8, and 10. There we go, 6, 8, and 10 units. All right, this is one for you to do. Find the length of the shorter side of the right triangle if the longer leg is 12 feet more than the shorter leg and the hypotenuse is 12 feet less than the shorter leg. Go ahead and pause. So when you work this out, that you should have got the length of the shorter length would be 36 feet. So if you need to, go ahead and pause and you can see what I did. All right, here's some extra practice I want you to try. So go ahead and pause and try those. Those are the answers that you should have gotten. So if you're having trouble, please let me know and I can help you. I know I've got this one. I can solve problems that can be modeled by quadratic equations, solve problems involving right triangles using the Pythagorean theorem, which we know is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But do you really understand? What equation could you write to solve the problem below? One leg of a right triangle is 3 centimeters longer than the other. The hypotenuse measures 15 centimeters. Find the lengths of the sides of the triangle. So you would use x squared plus x plus 3 squared equals 15 squared. If n represents the first of 3 consecutive odd integers, how would you represent the other 2 odd integers? And explain your reasoning. So if n is the first one, what are the other 2? N plus 2 and n plus 4, because consecutive odd integers differ by 2.